Good morning, everybody. We're live from the birdhouse, and today we're talking about the different types of suet and suet feeders, all the different kind of forms and shapes it comes in, all the different styles, sizes, flavors, and what's the differences between them. As always, we like to know what kind of things you guys are seeing. You can post those in the comments or just say hi. I know personally this morning I was awoken to a whole ruckus from a bunch of crows going after something in my neighborhood. They were really upset about something that was around. There's been a red-tailed hawk hanging out, so I was trying to see if it was the red-tailed hawk or maybe even an owl. Every once in a while, I'll hear a great horned owl in the neighborhood, but not lately. So I'm not sure what that was. So that was my exciting early morning birding adventure. So love to know what kind of things you guys are seeing and hearing. And of course, if you have questions, you can throw those in the comments. But right now, as far as feeding goes, a lot of people will feed birds suet because it is a really good source of fat. There's also seed cakes that can go into suet feeders that'll give you kind of more of a diversity of birds, not just woodpeckers and nuthatches and titmice. But I'll show you some of the different kinds. And I thought I'd start off with our bestseller as far as suet feeders go. If you've had a suet feeder before, it might have just been a little cage, which is totally fine. That's a really good way to start. But you'll find over time, if you start to attract a bunch of woodpeckers, especially those larger woodpeckers like the pileated woodpecker and the red-bellied woodpecker, which is quite common, when they go to land on just that little cage, they kind of flop around on it and it's hard for them to get their footing. So what we sell are a lot of what are called paddle tail feeders. And you've probably experienced this if you have one of these, which I know a lot of you guys have. Is when the woodpecker comes in, they'll cling on to this screen here and they use this prop here, this little tail, to give them some stability so they're not flopping all around on the feeder and they're upright and they're feeding. And so it makes it easier for them to cling onto and to feed upright, which they seem to prefer. So while the small little for the smaller woodpeckers, like the downy woodpeckers, for example, and little chickadees and titmice and nuthatches that'll come to suet feeders. If you're looking to attract the larger woodpeckers, right now flickers are coming to suet feeders quite often. Getting something with the paddle tail on it is really good. So this is our bestseller. It is from a company called Bird's Choice, and it's made out of recycled plastic. They're actually made out of milk jugs, old milk jugs. So people really like these. They're super easy to fill. The top just comes off. They're easy to clean as well. You can pull out both of these grates. And because it's recycled plastic, you can easily scrub it to clean it if you need to clean it. So that is our best-selling suet feeder. And what's the differences, I guess, is one thing that we get the question of all the time. What's the difference between all the different types of suet that we have? And we do have a lot of different flavors. If you've ever been here, you've seen the diversity of different things we have. So I'll show you a few of them and the differences between them. Our bestseller is something called Nutty Butter, really basic, just suet cake. It has some peanut butter fillers in it. So anything with peanuts in it is always good. If you're not quite sure what to get, anything with peanuts in it, you can't go wrong. Now, if you're trying to attract birds like bluebirds or nuthatches, or birds that might eat more berries, you can always go with something that has more berries or currants in it. We do have different types of berry suets. We've got one with raisins in it. We do have some with insects in it. So it depends on the type of bird you're trying to attract. They're not super picky as far as flavors go, but I would go with something more with berries in it if you have bluebirds that are wintering over. If not, and you're just looking for something basic, anything with nuts in it is perfect. Nuts or peanut butter. The thing that seems to attract the most diversity and goes the fastest in my yard, if you're looking to put out something that the birds really like, this woodpecker treat, that goes so fast in my backyard. So this seems to be the thing that they prefer the most out of everything that I've ever tried. And there's a mix of different nuts in here and fruits. So it's really got something for everybody, for any kind of bird that's going to come to a suet feeder. And certain companies have suets that are kind of more soft, I guess I would say. Like we've got this nutty treat. I showed you the nutty butter, which is our best seller. This nutty treat, it's a little bit more expensive, but it's also softer. So I find in the winter months, it doesn't harden up as fast as some of the other types of suet do. So in the winter, if your suet is freezing and it seems like it's hard for the birds to really peck at it well, I would go with anything from this C&S brand. This is the nutty treat. We've got one called berry treat. We've got one called seed treat, but they're all just softer. If you kind of squeeze it, you can feel that it's much softer. So I think it just allows for the birds to feed a little bit easier. They also make one come the spring that is really popular called orange treat. So looking forward to the spring, if you're trying to attract orioles to your backyard, they will sometimes come to suet feeders. So if you've never tried to attract orioles before, they can be pretty easy to attract actually, just by putting out some grape jelly. But if you want to try even harder to attract them, you can switch your suet out to orange flavored suet as we get into late April, early May, and that can help you get even more birds coming to your suet feeder. So out of season right now, but I thought I would throw that in. As far as the diversity of things that might come to your suet feeder, if it is not a squirrel-proof suet feeder, or if it's one that the squirrels can easily get to, they will probably try to feed from it. But there's different ways to keep them out of this suet feeder. You can first get a squirrel-proof suet feeder. Those do exist. We do have some here. Or you can change the type of suet that you're feeding them. Our most popular is this it's called Never Melt hot pepper suet. And we've talked about hot pepper things many times here on this broadcast. And it's infused with some different hot pepper oils. And the birds don't taste the hot pepper, but the squirrels do. So if you've got issues with squirrels eating your suet, you should try anything hot pepper. Can really help keep the amount of squirrels down. So this is our bestseller. It's called Never Melt hot pepper. If you've tried this and you've still gotten some squirrels, they're still eating it even though it's hot. There's some that are even hotter than that. So we've got kind of different degrees, that Never Melt hot pepper being the lowest heat. But we also have this one called Delight, which is really popular, and it's very, very hot. It's like bright red. I don't know if you can really see it there. It's like bright orange, bright red, and that will really keep the squirrels out. And so will this one called Flaming Hot Feast, and this is really popular in our seed logs, which I'll show you too in just a moment. But it does come in a suet cake size too. So this is seeds. So not only can you get woodpeckers coming to something like this, if you're trying to attract finches or cardinals, they would come to something like this because they don't, the cardinals especially don't really eat suet so much, but they will eat the seeds that are in this Flaming Hot Feast cake. So something else to consider. And another question we get is how to keep blackbirds out of suet feeders, and that can be a little difficult. Birds like the grackles come the spring, or starlings right now are really going to be what would be raiding your feeder. And there's a couple different things you can do. So you can get what's called an upside down suet feeder, and the idea with this is the birds feed from the bottom of it. So in order to access the suet, they have to cling upside down. And woodpeckers can do that. Nuthatches can do that. Chickadees can do it. Titmice. But the starlings have a hard time doing it. Sparrows have a hard time doing it. So this can really limit the amount of blackbirds and even sparrows that you're getting at your suet feeder if you're trying to kind of keep those at a minimum. So this is called an upside down suet feeder. The roof just lifts off, so it's super easy to fill. You just hang it up. And I would recommend always putting it in the area that your suet feeder is now, because the food isn't super visible right away until they're right under it. It can take them a little bit of time to get used to feeding from something like that. So that's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do as far as the blackbirds go and the starlings go is you can put out what's called just natural pure beef suet. And this has no fillers in it. So it doesn't have any seed. It doesn't have any peanut butter, any peanuts, any berries, nothing like that. The woodpeckers will come to it. It's probably not going to give you as big of a diversity as, say, that woodpecker treat or that nutty treat suet I was showing you, or even the hot pepper suet, but it will keep the blackbirds down. So this is called just pure beef suet. Or you can always do a safflower cake. So this is a seed cake, just like that flaming hot feast cake I was showing you. So you might get woodpeckers coming to this, but you're often going to get cardinals or finches coming to these safflower. So the blackbirds and the starlings, the grackles, they really don't like safflower seed, and neither do squirrels really. So this can help keep squirrels out of your feeder as well. So this is a safflower cake. So just some different options for some questions that often come up. We do have different types of paddle tail feeders as well. I showed you a recycled plastic one. We do have wooden ones in as well. This one holds 2 suet cakes if you're looking for something that you don't have to fill as often. We also have larger and longer paddle tail feeders that will hold 2, which are really good for the large woodpeckers, like the pileated woodpeckers. So we've got those also. But if you're looking for something you don't have to refill too often, if that's kind of your goal, we do have larger suet feeders like this. So these are much, much larger. And as opposed to holding a suet cake that's like 11 ounces or so, these will hold a suet cake that's 2 or 3 pounds. So these will hold a lot more suet. So you don't have to refill them too often. So we do have large suet cakes like this. And yeah, this one's 3 pounds. So that's quite a lot of suet that'll fit into a feeder like this. And not only do we have just the regular suet cakes, like that was a peanut butter suet cake, we've got hot pepper suet cakes, we have those flaming hot cakes. So we've got all kinds of different things that'll go into a feeder like this, which is great for woodpeckers. Or if you want something that'll attract things like cardinals and you're putting a seed cake in it, we do have this one that has the perch on it too. So you can get a whole bunch of birds not only clinging onto the side of the feeder as they do, but perched onto the ledge there. So this is a really good way to feed more birds, and you don't have to keep refilling your feeders. There's different shapes of suet as well. If you're looking for maybe a smaller sized feeder, we have these little seed bar, this kind of shape suet feeders as well. And we've got different flavors of things that go in there. This is one called Nutsy. That almost looks like a trail mix. It looks quite appetizing. So we've got these in finch styles that have Niger and sunflower hearts, but they just go into kind of a smaller, more rectangular size suet feeder. So we've got those. Another thing that's been kind of popular are these suet ball feeders. So we do have these suet balls like this in different styles. We've got hot pepper. We've got one that's full of insects that the bluebirds really like. And you can get a fun feeder like this. This is called the suet ball feeder. The top just lifts off, super easy to fill, and the woodpeckers will cling onto the feeder. It's like they show in the label there, and peck away at the seed balls. So if you're looking, or the suet balls. So if you're looking for something a little bit different, makes a good gift too. If somebody's got a bunch of feeders and you want to show them, something different that they can do and a different way that they can feed, we've got those also. And these have been really popular over the years too. So this is just a piece of a tree that has holes drilled in it. You could probably make one of these on your own. I couldn't, but some of you guys I'm sure could. So this is for what are called suet logs or log jammers. And they look like they're packaged just like a regular suet cake, but they are just little kind of cylindrical tunnels here. And those will go inside the suet feeder here. And the idea with these is they hang, they've got a little eye hook on the top, but the woodpeckers are naturally clinging onto the sides of trees all the time. So it just mimics the side of a tree, and the woodpecker will peck away at the suet that's inside. So something a little different if you're looking again for just a different way to feed birds, if you're bored with the feeders you have and want a little something different. But what's been super popular are not necessarily the suet cakes and the suet logs, but on these seed cylinders. So just like I was showing you, we have these seed cakes that can go in suet feeders. We've been selling the same kind of things in this cylindrical shape, and these seed logs have been super, super popular because they last a lot longer than just loose seed does. So if you're just filling your feeders with loose seed, you'll find that the birds go through it really, really quickly. With these, they kind of have to peck away at it and work at it a little more in order to go through it all. So these are really nice because you don't have to change them as often. Whereas I'm filling my feeders, say, every day in my backyard. These I only have to fill or I change them out maybe every week or every even 2 weeks, depending on the flavor that I've got out there. So these come in different types as well, depending on what kind of seeds you want to feed. Our bestseller is the hot style, the flaming hot feast, again, because the squirrels don't bother it. So the squirrels won't eat this. They'll eat things like this one, the shell-free medley, that has sunflower hearts in it or has peanuts in it, but they won't eat the flaming hot feast. And with these seed logs, you'll get more than just woodpeckers coming to it. You'll get cardinals, especially if you put out the safflower log. I had a pair of cardinals early this morning when those crows were squawking up a storm. I had a pair of cardinals going after my safflower log. They love these. And so because these last a lot longer, you don't have to trudge through snow. You don't have to fill those feeders all too often, which is really great. And if you want to try a diversity of different things, we have these what are called stackers. They're like little pieces of cylinders, and you can just stack them on top of each other. So you could try mixing up some different flavors if you want to try to attract a whole bunch of different birds in one spot and one feeder. And those logs can go on something super simple, or we've got some feeders that are a little bit more elaborate. Just something like this is really all they need. There's a hole that's drilled down the center of these seed logs, and they'll just slide onto this rod that's in the center here. It'll sit on this. The birds will use these as perches, or even just sit right on top of the food itself, and they'll eat that like crazy. This is the one I have in my yard. I actually have two of these. What I like about these are that there's a little hook on the bottom here too. So I've got one hanging off of another. So I've got them double stacked. So you can double stack them or triple stack them depending on how big of a space you have. And it's got a nice big perch on it. So I really like this one. This is called the Easy Feeder by Mr. Bird, who makes a lot of these seed cylinders. Or if you're looking for something that has a roof on it, you can get something like this. This is more elaborate. The log will go right here on the screw. You can hang it, or you could mount something like this on a post. You could mount onto the bottom of that and put it on a pole if you wanted. But this is nice because it has a roof. And we do get the question often that if these logs, if they're exposed to the elements, do they crumble really easily? And I would say no, they really don't crumble very easily, but I will find that as it gets to kind of the end and there's not that much left, every once in a while I'll look and it's on the ground and the birds are going to town on it. So they can fall off after a while. But say you do have a feeder and you just want to add a weather guard to it, we do have just these weather guards as well. So you can add those to the top. You can just hang your feeder from it, and that'll give it a little bit more protection. So that can help keep them from falling apart a little bit quicker. So those are the different things and the popular things that we have for woodpeckers. Of course, if you've ever been here before, you know we have way more different feeders and options than this, but I thought I'd show you some of the different things that have been popular, especially as we're in the cooler months, although we haven't had a lot of snow, hardly any snow really, as the weather does cool and as it is pretty cold, the birds you might find will come to the suet feeders more often. So looks like Ed is on and he says, good morning, wondering if anyone makes a large square paddle tail suet feeder. The pileatids work our large 3-pound style feeder we have, but they could use a paddle tail style for support. That is a great idea, and I am not aware of a company that makes those, but we'll pass it along. There's the Bird's Choice company that does make these paddle tail feeders. They are always looking for suggestions on new products, and I will actually see them at a trade show tomorrow. So I will see if that is an option. If it is, we will certainly order those immediately, because you're not the only person who's asked for that. Both the large paddle tail feeder that holds the big cakes, and then an upside down suet feeder as well that holds the large cakes, are both things that we're just kind of we're missing. So we'll see if we can fill that void. Dina is on it. She says, my husband replaced our paddle tail, used the chewed up one for a guide. So he sounds a little handy, and he replaced their paddle tail feeder. She said he cut some pressure treated wood. So it sounds like he made his own little paddle tail, which I've heard of people doing. You can add something to the bottom of the suet feeder you might already have to give that same effect of the paddle tail. Lynn is on. She says, good morning. We've had the pileated woodpecker and flicker at our suet feeder. I recently bought the bugs, nuts, and fruitcake. They really love that one. Yeah, I actually didn't show that one off, but we do have that one here. Super popular, called the bugs, nuts, and fruit. Just about any bird that's going to come to a bird feeder will come to this, because I don't know if you can see it there clearly, but there's peanuts in it. There's sunflower hearts. There's mealworms in it, which the bluebirds really like, and any kind of insect-eating birds really like those. And there's also pieces of fruit. There's currants in there, it looks like. So yeah, there's different types of food in here. Really something for any kind of bird that's going to come to a feeder. So this is super popular. So it sounds like Lynn is having some good luck with this. So it looks like that's everyone's comments and questions. I should mention that on Saturday, we will be having Teddy, the snowy owl from Wild Wings, here from 11 to 1. So we've got that going on here this weekend. So that should be a lot of fun. And we'll be back on Saturday with another broadcast at 10 a.m. So we'll be back then. And mark your calendar for Saturday at 11 to come out and check out Teddy, the snowy owl. He's always a big hit. So until then, hope you have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.